turn your volume up. This is an audio-first experience. Put on your headphones, close your eyes, and listen carefully. Some sounds are better left unheard. This is why my daughter keeps apologizing to the floorboards for what we did. It began as a typical childhood phase of talking to an imaginary friend beneath her bed. But last night, I woke up to hear her sobbing through the baby monitor, begging whatever is under the floor to stop making her look at its face. Every parent prepares themselves for the eccentricities of a 4-year-old's imagination. When my daughter, Lily, first started whispering to the corner of her bedroom, my husband and I smiled. We called it a phase. We bought our century-old farmhouse in upstate New York precisely for its character: the creaking, wide plank pine floors, the exposed beams, the heavy oak doors that swelled in the humid summers. It felt like a safe, grounded place to raise a family. But over the last month, the atmosphere inside these walls has shifted. The air always feels heavy now, thick with a faint, metallic odor that lingers no matter how many windows I open or how hard I scrub. At first, Lily called her imaginary friend the smiling man. She said he lived in the gaps between the floorboards, where the old wood had shrunk over the decades. I told myself it was just a creative reaction to the natural settling noises of an old house. But then her behavior changed. She stopped playing with her blocks. She stopped coloring. Instead, I would find her sitting perfectly still on the edge of her bed, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, staring directly down at the floorboards. When I asked her what she was doing, she wouldn't look at me. She would just whisper, "He's measuring my feet, Mommy. He wants to see if we match." The playful innocence of her imaginary friend completely shattered over the next 3 days. The subtle red flags hardened into a suffocating, inescapable reality. I began to hear the noises myself, not the soft, rhythmic groans of expanding wood, but a distinct, deliberate scratching sound that originated from directly beneath Lily's bedroom floor. It sounded like fingernails dragging across raw wood, moving slowly from one side of her room to the other. My pulse raced every time I stepped across her threshold. A heavy, suffocating claustrophobia settled over me, a feeling that the house itself was shrinking, trapping us inside an impossible space. I tried moving Lily's bed to the opposite wall, but that night, the scratching followed. Through the baby monitor, I listened to her hyperventilating in the dark. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, her tiny voice cracking with an adult-like despair. "I'm sorry we did it. Please don't make me look. Please pull your hair back." I bolted up the stairs, my heart hammering against my ribs. When I burst into her room and threw on the lights, Lily was on her hands and knees, her face pressed flat against the floorboards, staring down into a narrow half-inch gap between the wood. Her eyes were bloodshot, her fingernails bloody from clawing at the seams of the pine. When I grabbed her, she screamed a raw, visceral sound of pure terror that didn't sound like my daughter at all. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the floor, crying. "He's angry because you interrupted our apology." My husband tried to convince me it was night terrors, but I knew better. The air in her room had plummeted to a freezing, bone-chilling cold, and that metallic smell was now overwhelming, like pooling blood and rusted iron. The illusion of safety didn't just crack, it violently imploded the next afternoon when my husband left for a business trip. Desperate to prove to myself that there was nothing but old dust and insulation beneath Lily's room, I waited until she fell asleep on the living room couch. I grabbed a crowbar and a flashlight from the garage and went upstairs, determined to rip up the floorboards and end this psychological torment once and for all. I wedged the iron tool into the gap beneath her bed and pried with all my strength. The old nails shrieked as the wood groaned and gave way. I pulled up 3 long planks, expecting to see the standard wooden joists and plaster ceiling of our kitchen below. Instead, I stared down into pitch black, hollow emptiness. There were no joists. There was no kitchen ceiling. There was a completely hidden, unrecorded crawl space directly between the floors, barely 2 feet deep, stretching across the entire perimeter of the house. I lowered my flashlight into the dark void, my breath catching in my throat. The beam of light illuminated a horrifying scene. The space wasn't empty. It was filled with hundreds of childhood items, faded plastic dolls, little shoes, and missing toys from families who must have lived here decades ago. But that wasn't the twist. As I swept the light further into the darkness, I saw a nest made of old, rotted clothes. Written across the underside of the floorboards I had just pried up, scrawled in thick, dark, dried fluid, were hundreds of lines of messy handwriting. It wasn't Lily's handwriting. It was an adult's. The words repeated over and over, thousands of times, covering every inch of the hidden ceiling. "We did it. We hid them. I'm sorry. We did it. We hid them. I'm sorry." My lungs locked. A cold sweat broke out across my entire body as a sudden realization hit me like a physical blow. The entities Lily was apologizing to weren't ghosts. Someone had been living in the anatomy of this house. Right then, the battery on my flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into absolute darkness. In that dead silence, I heard it. A wet, ragged breath exhaled from just 3 feet away, right inside the open hole in the floor. Panic exploded through my veins. I scrambled backward on my hands and knees, screaming for Lily, but my voice felt caught in my throat. From the darkness of the hole, a pale, emaciated hand with elongated, filthy fingernails reached out, gripping the edge of the remaining floorboards. Then came the face. It rose slowly from the dark void, a human face, but horribly deformed by years of darkness, with sunken, sightless eyes and a wide, manic, unblinking smile that stretched too far across its jaw. It had no hair, and its skin was the color of curdled milk. "Mommy," a voice called out. I spun around. Lily was standing in the doorway, staring at the monster rising from her floor. The creature didn't attack. Instead, it let out a wet, clicking laugh, and mimicking my daughter's exact, innocent voice, it whispered, "Look what we did." I grabbed Lily in a blind, breathless frenzy, lifting her into my arms as the creature began to drag its elongated, twisted torso out of the floorboards. I ran. I didn't look back. I flew down the stairs, my boots barely hitting the steps, hearing the frantic, wet scuttling of something moving with terrifying speed through the walls right beside me. We burst through the front door and into the blinding rain, screaming for help as we sprinted toward the main road. The police found no one. When they searched the hidden crawl space between the floors, they discovered food wrappers, recent trash, and a network of small, drilled peepholes that looked directly down into every single room of our house. The man, or whatever he had become after decades of living in the dark, had slipped out through a hidden hatch in the cellar before the authorities arrived. We never went back to that house. We broke our lease, left all of our furniture behind, and moved into a brightly lit, modern apartment in the city, surrounded by concrete and steel. But the psychological wreckage remains. The terror didn't leave us in those woods. Lily doesn't talk much anymore. She sits quietly in the living room, staring at the clean linoleum floors of our new home. The doctors say it's post-traumatic stress, that she's just processing the event. But last night, the baby monitor woke me up again. There was no static. There was only the sound of Lily's soft, terrified weeping. I crept down the hallway, my heart freezing in my chest as I peered through the crack of her bedroom door. She wasn't in her bed. She was kneeling on the floor, her ear pressed tightly against the solid linoleum, listening to something deep beneath the concrete. She looked up at the ceiling, her eyes wide and vacant, and whispered to the empty room, "He says he found the new pipes, Mommy. He says he's sorry. He took so long to walk here."